All right, we're here. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. A little late, but it's all good. Donnell, Robbie, Detroit, thank you for all over here. And today we have a wonderful guest, everybody. But before we go there, get your coffee, get everything together, and let's welcome author of Maharishi and Me. We're going to bring up in a couple of minutes Susan Shumsky in about 2 minutes and 2 seconds. Author of this fabulous book. She was a personal. She served the Maharishi's personal staff for 6 years, and we're going to have her story and talk all about it. And right about now, okay. Welcome, hey Susan. Hey, how you doing?
I'm
How are
doing
you?
great.
Good to
Great.
see you. Good to see you this morning. So we'll talk about a little about your book, which right over here. I have it right here. Everybody that's out there in YouTube, you could check that out right there. This beautiful heart right there. It's nice and wonderful. Susan, the pictures are so cool in here. First of all, let me just show really quick everybody out there these pictures. Right here, we got some great, fabulous pictures over here. And you could see Susan. Right there's a great picture of Susan right there with Robbie Krieger from The Doors. We'll put all that good stuff up there. Susan, you're back. Okay, so Susan, excuse us for the technical difficulties. Everything will be edited on here, but this is raw and Patreon. Let's talk about this for the start of before you met the Maharishi. What was Susan's life before all this magic was happening? What was going on?
Well, I was a hippie. It was the 60s. I was living in the San Francisco Bay Area. Yeah. And those of us who were flower children, perhaps you might know, might not know, we were really sincere about experiencing altered states of consciousness, higher consciousness. And our gurus at that time were Timothy Leary and Richard Alpert, who later became Ram Dass. They wrote a book called The Psychedelic Experience. They were telling us to turn on, tune in, and drop out. So that's what we were doing. We were trying to reach nirvana through LSD because that's what they told us we could do. If we drop LSD, we turn on, tune in, and drop out, then we would attain the spiritual enlightenment that we were seeking. So, it wasn't just all about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. A lot of it was about this altered consciousness.
So what was the whole group that you were hanging as a kid? The scene that you were with your friends. What was the age of the whole gang?
Well, at that time, I was 18 years old when I was going to art school out there in the Bay Area. Mm-hmm. And we were hippies, we dressed in these wild outfits. It was all about make love, not war. I did a lot of that. And but I was really seeking this higher consciousness. So I was reading books like The Way of Zen by Alan Watts and Yogananda's book, Autobiography of a Yogi. And I was reading the Buddhist scriptures. And in the books of Alan Watts, he said that you have to find a meditation guide. Well, in 1966 in Berkeley, California, you didn't exactly go to the yellow pages and look up meditation guide or anything remotely similar. So I asked a friend, well, how do I find this meditation guide? And he said, well, have you ever tried to meditate on your own? I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. So I lay down on my bed. That's how clueless I was. I didn't know that you're supposed to sit up when you meditate. I lay on my bed and sort of prayed for or asked for a meditation. And immediately I was propelled into this ecstatic state. I could feel this cord or rush of energy rushing from the tips of my toes all the way to the top of my head. And I felt like I was plugged into a cosmic electric socket, but in a most ecstatic way. And a little did I know that not only did I have my first meditation experience, but also Kundalini awakening all at the same time. Yeah. And that was my really introduction to higher consciousness. And then a friend took me to the Transcendental Meditation Center. There was no teacher there. I had to wait 9 months to even learn meditation, but eventually the teacher came during the summer of love, I might add. in August of 1967, just a few weeks before the Beatles learned TM. I learned TM there in Berkeley, California.
Oh, wow. Wow. So okay, but you had a little knowledge of where to go with it to get your mind in that Zen part before you were dabbling with it. Nothing.
Yeah, through drugs, through LSD, through smoking grass.
So that would take you. Yeah. But you were looking for a natural high, which is why you kind of like, okay, you had enough of, the party, and it's like, okay, where can I take this but a natural thing? Oh, hold on. She'll be right back, people. She's having a little internet. But let's remember that question right there, okay? In the meantime, let's see over here. Right over here, there's her book, Maharishi and Me, and let's get back to the stories with her right here. Okay, you're back. Okay, see? You just went somewhere. You decided to meditate on me on the show. I know what you're doing. But were you looking for that, because you're young, when kids are young, they're partying, LSD, whatever. I mean, I guess
it was not a party.
It wasn't a party, huh?
Well, the first time I took LSD, I had a major psychotic breakdown.
You did?
I never came down from the drug. Weeks and months later, I was having LSD flashbacks.
Wow.
Really often. I was hallucinating. It was a horrendous experience. So I wasn't really looking for more drugs.
Yeah.
I was really looking for, like you said, a natural high.
A natural high. So when the first time you did LSD, was that, how old were you your first time on LSD?
I was 18.
18 years old. So everything happened basically at 18 years old for you, huh? 18 is when you just, okay, let me try this, let me try that. And it was only one time you ever did LSD, just that one time?
No, I took it 3 times.
Three times?
The third time I took it, I really did have a cosmic experience. But
do you remember?
Very strange.
Do you remember the third time you took it? Can you tell us?
Yes, I remember vividly. I dropped the tab. I was on a hill overlooking the ocean in Big Sur. And I dropped the tabs, and then I went into this ecstatic state, sort of a meditative state. I lay down on the grass and went into this state of consciousness. And then 4.5 hours later, 4.5 hours later, the person that I was with, I sort of opened my eyes, and he was asleep. He was lying on the grass asleep, and I nudged him and I said, what's happening? And he said, I said, what time is it? And he, it was 4.5 hours later. And he said, you have been in this state of consciousness with a blissful countenance, blissful state, looking like you were in another world for 4 hours. And I said, what? I was completely unconscious. I felt robbed of my nirvana because I wasn't even conscious for it.
Oh my God. So it just put you out. It was just done. That was it. So that was that the time you go, okay, now I'm searching and I want to go deeper. Is that where it leads you to over here?
Really, I was looking. There was no end to my searching until I found transcendental meditation.
And how about relationships, like with boyfriends and this and that?
Oh, I had a gazillion of them. You have to understand, it was make love, not war. Mm-hmm. Those of us who were really into the hippie lifestyle, I was very promiscuous.
It was a different time, the 60s. And I guess that's why they call it the swinging 60s, right?
I think so, yeah.
All right, for the viewers out there, let's talk about your book. Let's tap on some things. I love your stories because you know what? You're more rock and roll than Zeppelin right now with these stories. It's great. I love it. You know what? We're going to go here. And since you are, a rock and roll girl, what are you, give me 3 top vinyl albums that you had when you around that time that was the records. Do you remember the records that you have your choice at that time?
Well, Bob Dylan's record, and the Beatles. I was into the Beatles and I was into Dylan, and that was really it. I anytime a Beatles record would come out, I'd be there at the music store picking it up.
So you're a big Beatles fan?
Sure, I was a Beatlemaniac when I was a teenager.
What was the first Beatle album for you that did it for you?
The first one that came out. It was called what was it called? Introducing the Beatles.
That's right, Introducing the Beatles, which then America got Meet with the Beatles, Meet the Beatles.
Then it was Meet the Beatles, yeah.
All, but as all the Beatle crazies, we all have all the copies. Yeah. Which favorite Beatles song?
I'd say Across the Universe.
Really? Okay. All right. Favorite Beatle?
George.
Really? George. Okay. All right. Worst Beatle song that you don't want to listen to?
Mary Jane.
Okay.
What a mess that was.
Not number 9, Revolution number 9. That one you could do?
No, that was okay, actually. Number 9 was okay.
Did you do LSD and listen to number 9 ever?
No, I did LSD and listened to the Revolver album, because at the time that I was taking LSD, Revolver, that was the LSD album that they made, So I was listening to Tomorrow Never Knows when I was on LSD.
Wow. What was that like? Do you remember the experience listening to that song on LSD?
I was hallucinating and I was scared to death, and I was paranoid. It was horrendous. As I said, it was a horrible experience. My first LSD trip.
And a disclaimer out there for any young kids that are watching, or adults that want to go crazy right now in their lives, and because of this whole corona and you're locked in your house, do not try LSD alone in the house. Be very careful. Just get the book Maharishi and Me by Susan, or she may have some tips on how to meditate. So now, what brought you here? I don't want to give away the book because we want people to go check out your lovely book here, but let's give a little highlights of the book that you would like to share with us. I mean, I'm very curious about the Maharishi as a person, what type of person he was, what type of man he was. The first time you met him, because now he's built up, you're getting into this, and as anybody would meet, if you met Elvis or if you met John Lennon, we create these magical images of our idols before we meet them. And was it the same for you when you met Maharishi?
It was really weird. Okay, so after I learned TM, I was having such amazing experiences with it, and it transformed my life so quickly, so magically. I became a volunteer at the TM Center. I was helping them set up retreats. I was doing all kinds of volunteer work. And then they said that Maharishi was going to be in LA, and would I like to drive down? So a bunch of us jumped into a Woody and we drove down to LA to see Maharishi. So there we are, and Maharishi is arriving at the airport. And so we're standing in a double line to greet him, and we're all like our hands are like this and pranam and namaskar, and we are ready to say Jai Guru Dev, and a lot of us have flowers, but I was dressed like a total wild hippie. I was wearing this horrible dress from a junk store, and it looked like a rag hanging on my very skinny body. And I had all the crazy accoutrements and funky sandals and the beads and the granny glasses. And I just was dressed outrageously. And there I am standing with these wilted wildflowers that I had picked on the road on the way down there. Everyone else had flowers from a flower shop. So I'm standing there completely tense and nervous. And he's like smiling and cooing, and he's walking down the road, the corridor, and taking flowers from everyone and saying Jai Guru Dev. And he's just billing and cooing, and he doesn't stop. He just keeps walking and walking and walking till he gets to me. And then he stops. I was the only person. And he looks me up and he looks me down, and he looks me up and he looks me down. And he grabs the wildflowers from me with a kind of an angry gesture. And he's scowling at me. And then he says, Jai Guru Dev, and he walks, continues to walk. So, yeah, that was my first encounter with Maharishi.
Wow. That's a wild, huh? So so what were you thinking when he grabbed the flowers from you? Like he would abruptly, like just.
Yes, abruptly. And I'm thinking, oh, he doesn't approve,
So and there you are. You're there. It's almost like you're JFK Airport when the Beatles landed to America. Here you are, right? And you're like, well, you're thinking, oh my goodness, what did I pick the flowers? Was he mad I picked the flowers? What's going on here? Did you ever find out later what?
Well, I found out a lot later because I ended up being in his various ashrams for over 2 decades, and I was on his personal staff for 6 years. So I got to know the man very, very well. Yes.
Very well. So so he's walking in. Was he a tall man? Short?
Oh, he was 5 feet tall.
Small.
He was the shortest man
Wow.
I've ever met. He was very, very slight, but very short, but very muscular. He was muscular. He was strong. And he looked regal. There was something about his presence. He had this amazing presence. It would knock you over, really, being around him. And also had this amazing love vibration. He just exuded love. And he was the happiest person I ever met. And he was always laughing and giggling. The press called him the giggling guru. They named him that.
He had a high pitched voice because you don't.
He did.
He had a
high pitched voice. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's so legendary when you look back at the old clips of the Maharishi, just video clips of with him with the Beatles, because that's a lot of us do know him from the Beatles. And if anybody doesn't know, you've been under a rock. But when you just like this picture right here, when you look at him and just you could sense it. It's like that big. It's like that oomph. That's why I was asking you, when you first met him, it's like we build them up in our head, these idols of ours, whether it's Elvis or the Beatles, and they're bigger than life. And then you're like, okay. And then getting to know them. And, you got to hang out with a lot of people there. Now, around the time when you went there, you got to meet, and here's a picture from your book. Let me put this up. It's in the book, everybody. But when I open it, it doesn't do just right here. Check this out. That's a great picture of you with Robbie Krieger of the Doors.
That's actually not Robbie Krieger.
Oh, it's not? I thought it was.
In the caption, it says I was wearing a ring that Robbie Krieger had given me.
Oh, forget it. I'm done. That's it. Wait, who is that with you then?
That was a guy that I was in love with at the time.
Oh, that's not Robbie
Krieger. From Holland.
What's his name?
His name was Fred Denowden.
Okay, I thought that was Robbie. So you went a ring from Robbie Krieger?
I was wearing a ring from Robbie Krieger because I met him. Well, there was a lot of celebrities that were around Maharishi.
Yeah.
And I was at a Squaw Valley course in 1968 in August. And that's where I met the Doors. Robbie and John were there. And so Robbie and I had a little flirtation. And he gave me this beautiful ring.
So there you go. So now we're getting into deep stuff here. So did you date Robbie Krieger or just
No, I didn't really. We just had a flirtation during that course.
Okay. You don't have to get deep on it. I'm just curious. I'm okay, but you got to know each other. Let's just put it that way. You and Robbie. Wow. So he lit your fire, basically.
Definitely light my fire was Robbie Krieger. Definitely lit my fire for me. Yeah.
That's a good one. Okay, at least that's a good one. So now, you're over here, how did you become the Maharishi's assistant? How did you work it up from there?
Oh well, I just continued to take all his courses, and I wanted to be with him, and I was really just focused on, I want to be with Maharishi. Mm-hmm. And so at one of the courses that I was on, I asked if I could join his international staff. And he said, yes. It was really that simple. And there were very few people on his staff, by the way. It was a very privileged position. Mm-hmm. But he said yes. And so I ended up spending 6 years in Europe with him on his staff.
Wow. So he took you around. So basically he was your mentor, of course, and he just took you around. So what's interesting is Mia Farrow and Prudence, because of the age situation. After they were supposedly, there was a little situation. Magic Alex, which viewers, if you don't know Magic Alex, he was John Lennon's. He was like John Lennon. He had like John Lennon was just Magic Alex was his guy basically. And Susan, are you there? Okay, gotcha. like, because your age, did it stop? What was it?
So Prudence is exactly the same age that I am.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And both of us went through the same thing. And that is that, well, she learned TM before I did, 1 or 2 years before I did. But we both of us tried to go to India to be with Maharishi. We wanted to become teachers of transcendental meditation. And you had to go to Rishikesh, India, which is in the foothills of the Himalayas. And you have to go there in order to become a teacher. So she kept applying for courses to go to India, and so did I. So I kept applying. I was applying to like 3 courses before I was accepted to go to India, because you had to be 24 years old and a graduate of college. Eventually, Maharishi loosened that requirement, and he allowed the younger students to go. The only reason that Prudence was able to go when she was younger was because of her sister, Mia Farrow. When Mia heard that the Beatles were going to be in India, she said to Prudence, well, I want to go to India and study with Maharishi. So Prudence arranged for Mia to talk to Maharishi on the phone. Her teacher actually arranged it. And so Maharishi talked to Mia and invited her to come to India. Well, Prudence got very jealous immediately. Like my sister, she gets everything. And Maharishi said he would meet with Prudence. So when he went to Harvard Law Forum to give a huge lecture there was 5,000 people that show up for his lecture there, he did meet with Mia, and he met with Prudence as well. And he gave Prudence permission to come to India with Mia. So she was the youngest student there when the Beatles were there. And she took the course, and she was thrilled to take the course because she was so into meditation. And she didn't want to leave her room. She just wanted to meditate all the time. And unfortunately, she was in the barracks with the Beatles, who were making all this noise. But, she just continued to meditate, although she asked Maharishi to move her to another building. But the ashram was totally full. So there was no place to accommodate her. So she had to stay there. So she was just staying inside and meditating and meditating and meditating. Unfortunately, when she was younger, when she was a teenager, she had really taken a lot of drugs and alcohol. In fact, it was a very serious situation. Her drug and alcohol use was major, and she ended up in a mental institution for a while.
Wow.
And she had some really troubling years. Unfortunately, her parents were really not there. She was raised by housekeepers, and they were lax. When they were in Connecticut, they would have these parties, these drug parties, and junkies would be there, and it was a bad scene.
Wow.
So Prudence had some issues. And when she went to India and she was in the long meditations, because people were meditating up to 18 hours a day. I mean, they were meditating all the time. Back then, they used to do that on the TM courses. They don't do that anymore, but they used to do
18 hours a day. Wow, that's...
Yeah, or, like John and George, when they were there, the Beatles, John and George, they did 8 hours a day. But some of the students there were meditating all the time, including Prudence. And there was a period during that course where Maharishi told them to go into their rooms for 5 days and not come out, and have the food delivered to their doors if they wished. It wasn't a requirement, but he did suggest that they do that. Prudence had already been just not coming out hardly at all. So, but when the 5th day of that silence, Prudence really had a psychotic episode, unfortunately. And she was throwing things in a room. She was screaming. They had to actually take her from the barracks where she was staying in the Beatles building. They had to. There was a guy, they had to move him from his room and put her in his room, and he ended up in this laundry room.
Oh wow!
It was the only place they could put him. So, but what happened was Maharishi really took wonderful care of Prudence. She went to him every day for 3 weeks to his bungalow. She was taken over there every day. And within 3 weeks, she was absolutely cured. She came out, she was happy, she was smiling, she was talking to people. And since then, she has been incredible. She's an amazing person. Her story really has had a happy ending. She got married, has had several children. She's a Sanskrit scholar. She got a PhD. I mean, she's just amazing woman. And she was on my course with me in India. So she did come back to other courses. So she was on my course in India. And so that's where I got to know Prudence.
That's where you get to know her pretty good. So, dear Prudence, won't you come out to play? The sun is up. All the words, huh? Yeah. It's basically that. So that's what the whole song is really around, that whole experience of her.
It is. A lot of the Beatles songs that they wrote in India were just things that were going on there.
Yeah.
Dear Prudence was one. Continuing Story of Bungalow Bill was another one. And Mother Nature's Son. There were several of them that were really based upon what was going on.
What was going on? So let's ask, what are the secret meanings in the songs? Let's say Revolution. Let's go for that one first.
I'm glad you chose Revolution, because it's very interesting that John Lennon wrote about revolution. It was the 60s. It was a time of revolution. The Vietnam War was going on. But people don't realize that song was about something called the Maharishi effect. And what in the world is that? So Maharishi, ever since he began teaching meditation in 1955, as early as 1955, he declared that if a small percentage of the world population would practice the meditation technique that he was teaching, at that time it was called deep meditation, that we could create world peace throughout the world. He believed that because the vibrations of just a few individuals, those vibrations, positive vibrations going out into the atmosphere, that would influence other people and the world could be at peace. So he later in his career in the 1970s, he decided he wanted to prove that. So what he would do is he would send meditators to war-torn areas and crime-ridden areas. And then his scientists would do statistical analyses. And what they would find is that the crime rate would go down, the war would subside, whatever it was, that truly meditating in large groups, people meditating together, would create this effect. And it was called the Maharishi effect. So that was what John Lennon was talking about when he was saying, you got to free your mind instead. We want to change your head. He was talking about what Maharishi always used to say was, in order for the forest to be green, the trees must be green. In order for the world to be at peace, individuals must be at peace. And I always thought that made a lot of sense, because how can you have a world at peace with warring, conflicted individuals? So that Maharishi effect was the idea of, let's get as many people as possible to practice meditation, and then that will change the world. So that's what the song Revolution was about.
Wow. Well, I didn't know that. It's crazy, because for that whole White Album time, that era, he was pretty much the fifth Beatle. You know what's weird about it all? They lost Brian Epstein when the Beatles went to India in 1967. So Brian, I think, and I could correct me, August 1967 is when he passed away. So the Beatles lost their father figure while they were looking for something else, which is weird. And here you got them going back there, and they're writing this music, and it's like the Maharishi for that short time was a big influence on them, where Brian left off, the Maharishi took over. That's what I'm seeing over here. How about everybody's got something to hide except for me and my monkey?
That is one of the songs that's most about Maharishi. Now, why would anybody think that was most about Maharishi?
Yeah.
Because of the fact that all the lyrics of that song were things that Maharishi used to say all the time. So, come on, come. Anytime Maharishi wanted to meet with me privately, meet anybody privately, he would say, come, or he would say, come on. If he wanted you to come into his meeting room or tag with him, walk with him, come along with me, that's what he would say. Come, or come on. Also, another thing he would always say is, oh, it's such a joy. Oh, it's such a joy. Everything was such a joy. So anytime he would be happy, elated about something, it was always, it's such a joy. And then the other one, another thing he always used to say when he was talking about meditation, especially if people were having problems with meditation, if they found that they were having maybe some issues coming up during meditation, which he called unwinding or unstressing, he would say, take it easy and take it as it comes.
Wow.
And he used to say that all the time. Anytime someone is having any problem at all, it was take it easy, take it as it comes. Now, John Lennon never admitted that song was about Maharishi. And I think it's because he was so bitter towards Maharishi. So he never admitted it, but George admitted it. He was quoted as saying that it had some things that Maharishi used to say. The only trouble is, George, I don't know about the title. George said that everybody's got something to hide was something that Maharishi always used to say. I never heard Maharishi say that.
Okay.
Never. And I've known him. I knew him for a very long time, but maybe he said it to the Beatles in India. It's very possible.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. Lennon was a little bitter, huh? Towards the Maharishi.
More than a little bitter. Yeah.
A little bitter. He held on to that, huh?
He
Peace, love.
Did.
Yeah. But it's funny that he held on to that. What was the reason why he was bitter to the Maharishi?
Well, he was disillusioned. All the Beatles were disillusioned, not only John, but okay, so there's 4 Beatles. So Ringo stayed in India for 10 days. Mm-hmm. And he left because, frankly, he had a 6-month-old baby at home. That was the main reason he left. But also his wife, Maureen, couldn't stand the bugs. She had a paranoid thing about bugs. The legend is that one fly kept her hostage for 4 hours until Ringo came back to the bungalow, to the room. But she, in India, it was a jungle. Mm-hmm. There were scorpions, there were centipedes, there were millipedes, there were all kinds of bugs, and she didn't like bugs. So that was one reason they left. Another reason was because Ringo had peritonitis as a child, and he couldn't handle. There's a lot of food he couldn't handle. Mm-hmm. And he had brought an entire suitcase of Heinz beans cans with him, an entire suitcase of Heinz beans so that he would have something to eat. So in any case, after 10 days, that was enough for them. Mm-hmm. But Ringo did enjoy it. He had nothing but positive things to say about it. And then Paul, he stayed for 5 weeks. And the reason he left is because he had already planned to only stay about a month. But not only that, he came with Jane Asher, and Jane had to go back to London for a theatrical commitment that she had at Old Vic. So they left. Mm-hmm. And once again, he had nothing but positive things to say. He wrote a song called Cosmically Conscious, which is basically about let's become cosmically conscious, and it's such a joy, it's such a joy, it's such a joy. Those are the lyrics to that song. So he had good feelings, good vibrations about the whole thing. Yeah. John and George were the ones that stayed for quite a while. They stayed from February till April. So that's 3 months? 2 months. So 2 months. So they were really into it. They went into the long meditations. They did go up to as much as 8 hours a day of meditating. and they were going to do a film with Maharishi, a documentary. In fact, Neil Aspinall, who was one of their managers at that time, came to Rishikesh and negotiated a contract with Maharishi for this film. It was going to be about the TM organization. It was going to be about Maharishi and Maharishi's guru, whom he called Guru Dev. And they were going to do this film, and they had an exclusive contract. But unfortunately, Maharishi signed an exclusive contract with somebody else before that. And that was 4-Star Productions of Hollywood. And Maharishi's main man in the United States, his name was Charlie Lutz, who, by the way, John Lennon nicknamed him Captain Kundalini. So Charlie Lutz was in the United States, and he signed a contract with 4-Star Productions to do a film. In fact, a lawyer arrived in Rishikesh with Charlie with a signed contract that gave 4-Star Productions the exclusive right to film Maharishi for the next 5 years. So they arrive in India, and then their film crew arrives in India overnight, one night, and then John Lennon opens the door to his bungalow. He's bedheaded and bleary-eyed. He looks out into the courtyard, and what does he see? He sees a cameraman and a director, and the director yells, "Action!" So John and George are absolutely livid. This other film deal was done behind their backs. And all of a sudden, they're supposed to be 2-bit players in someone else's film. So they refused to leave their rooms. They wouldn't go to the lecture hall where the lights and cameras were set up. And they just basically, it was not long after that they left.
Yeah. So they got so the Maharishi went to Hollywood. Maharishi goes Hollywood at this point. And it's almost like a Bravo channel where they're doing a reality show on the Beatles, behind the Beatles' back. But didn't the Beatles see them coming in there? Who are all these people? Who's this? You got new people in here. They didn't think twice about it at first.
They arrived overnight.
Yeah.
The film crew arrived overnight.
Yeah.
And apparently this was all,
Well, they're in the room sleeping, and then all of a sudden, boom, they're out there.
Yeah.
Wow.
But Maharishi had been warned. There were some people around him who said to him, Maharishi saying, "Oh, it's okay if we sign the contract with them, and we sign the contract with them. Oh, everyone's going to work together for the glory of Guru Dev." And they said to him, "Maharishi, contracts don't work that way." Exactly.
No. What about "Why Don't We Do It in the Road"? Who's that about? What meaning? Okay, that's one of my favorite Beatles songs.
Oh, great. So Paul was actually sitting on the roof of his bungalow. The Beatles used to go up there to play music and so on. So he was up there, and all of a sudden he saw a troop of monkeys come by. There was a lot of monkeys in India. There's all kinds of animals there. Monkeys, in fact, at the dining room, which was really just a table outdoors with a trellis over it, where they ate all their meals, there was a sign next to the dining room said, "Beware a monkey attack," because the monkeys would come and snatch a piece of toast or two from the table. Really often they'd have to fight off the monkeys to have breakfast, as Ringo said. That was a quote from Ringo. So there is Paul sitting up there. He sees a troop of monkeys, and all of a sudden he sees a male monkey jump on the back of a female monkey, and they have sex, for a few seconds. And it just occurred to him how out in the open the animals were. No big deal. They have sex, and then he moves on. And and the woman, the female monkey, she moves on too. It's no big deal.
That's it.
So that's what he felt about this whole sex act. And he was thinking, well, maybe human beings should be like that. Maybe they should be as uninhibited as monkeys when they're having sex. So that was what that song was. And by the way, if you really know anything about Paul McCartney's songs that he's written and so on, he's the most uninhibited of the Beatles. Yeah. In fact, not too long ago, he admitted that he had group masturbation with John Lennon and some other of his mates, his buddies back in Liverpool when they were teenagers.
That's right. That's right. He did admit that. So what about the Maharishi now? Here is a guru. He's a man. Okay. What about him with the women out there? Was it free love there with the Maharishi, or did he stay away from the women?
Maharishi claimed to be Bal Brahmachari. That means a life celibate. However, because I was in the inner circle, I know several women. I know more than 5 women who either had sex with Maharishi or were bidden to.
So was the legend
not me, by the way, not me.
So you not you, but the legend of Maharishi. Was there a legend? Was it a talk or the Maharishi? It's cosmic with him. Was it a talk around the people would talk about the Maharishi? Or
no, actually, no, not at all. Mia Farrow was in India with the Beatles. She was there for the first part of the course. She actually left a month before John and George left. So people think that that John and George left in a huff from India because of Mia Farrow. It had nothing to do with her. She was already gone. Mm-hmm. However, she did tell people in India, she told at a private party, she told some people that Maharishi had made a pass at her. They certainly didn't believe it. They thought she must be out of her mind. And they asked her to describe it. And she said, oh, he touched my hair. And they said, oh, but that, he just touched your hair. And that's no, he would touch people's heads. He would not often, but sometimes he put his hand like that over someone's head to give them a blessing. So they figured that's what he had done. But she said, hey, I know a pass from a puja, meaning he was doing a ceremony for her called a puja ceremony. It was for her birthday. And then, so no one really knew about that except for a very small number of people. But then she came back to the States and she told Ned Wynn about it. Now, Ned Wynn was Keenan Wynn's son and Ed Wynn's grandson. Yeah. And by the way, I had an affair with Ned, so I knew him quite well.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, he was a lover of mine for a while. So in any case, he wrote a book called We Always Live in Beverly Hills. And in that book, he talks about his conversation he had with Mia when she came back from India. And she said, listen, I know a pass from a puja, and he definitely tried to make it with me. So, and then in her biography later, which was, 20, 30 years later, decades later, she talked about that he had put his arms around her. She said she suddenly felt these hairy arms going around her when she was downstairs in his cave, in his puja room. So she described it. But then she also said in that book that she wasn't sure if it was really a pass. So she kind of backpedaled on it.
It's a little boy cried wolf over there. It's starting to sound like.
A little bit, yeah. But I have to tell you that I believe that he made a pass at her because I know too many women. I know a lot of women who admitted to me what he had done.
And the stories all match up at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And one of the women actually wrote a book. She wrote a book. Her name's Judith Bork. She wrote a book called Robes of Silk, Feet of Clay.
Yeah.
That was the name of the book. And she went into great detail about her relationship with Maharishi. And she was there with me in India when it was going on.
Wow. So it was, but they kept it a secret?
It was all a secret. It's still kept a secret.
I mean, wow.
It's absolutely kept under wraps. I am going to talk about it more frankly in the book that I'm writing right now, which is called How India Influenced the Beatles. I'm writing a book by that title where I'm going to go into that a little more. I went into it maybe there's one page in my book, Maharishi and Me, about that, because it's not really the topic of my book.
Yeah, it's about, pretty interesting story about the Maharishi, especially nowadays where the world is and everybody is coming out about people and all this. Is there a song that the Beatles wrote that pretty much describes him being that guy? What song is that? Would you say?
Sexy Sadie. Sexy Sadie.
Okay.
That was originally Maharishi. It was Maharishi, you blip and blip. What the blip have you done? And it was very explicit with expletives. And it was written by John Lennon as they were waiting for the taxis to come and take them away from India. And taxis take them away from Rishikesh, India. And when George saw what John was doing, he said, you can't sing that. What are you doing? So then they changed it to Sexy Sadie, which has the same number of syllables as Maharishi. So it fit the song.
Very interesting. I never thought of that. Wow. And Lennon was one to play with the words and letters of signs or whatnot.
Yeah, he loved
in his
to.
song. He loved
and you wonder whether maybe they were trying to say sexy sadhu.
Interesting. Interesting. It's pretty, Susan, you're pretty good at this stuff. You know a lot going on there. I think this book has a lot of good stuff in here, and I think people should check this book out. I mean, this is definitely good, and the pictures are great in it as well. And
it has over 100 pictures in that book. It's really well illustrated book. Yeah,
you have a lot. What about Cynthia Lennon? We all know that the marriage was on the rocks with John and Cynthia, and around that time Yoko was out there in the wings. Did the Maharishi, you think, ever try to make a pass at Cynthia? I talked to you, and and maybe that was another thing that made Lennon want to like fly out or whatnot.
No, I only know about 3 women when the Beatles were in Rishikesh. There were 3 women. One was Mia. The second one's name was Benita Glossner from Sweden. And the third was Rosalind. And Rosalind was the one that Alexis Mardis was having an affair with, and that claimed that Maharishi had made a pass at her. And nobody believed it. They thought she's out of her mind, or, there's no way, and Paul Horn, who was a flautist, very famous musician, he commented on it, and he said that they were just stirring up rumors, and that Alexis and Alexis and her were just trying to make a controversy. And in fact, Alexis Mardis, who is known as Magic Alex, he told Charlie Lutz, Captain Kundalini, Charlie Lutz, the man who was Maharishi's main man in the United States, Alexis admitted to him that he came to India only for one purpose, and that was to break up the Beatles with Maharishi, to separate the Beatles from Maharishi. And Charlie said, why would you do that? And he said, well, we don't want Maharishi to have that much control over the boys, as if he was in charge of the Beatles or something. So he definitely encouraged the rumor and stirred it up and made it into a big thing with John Lennon and George, and finally convinced them that Maharishi had made a pass at Rosalind.
Interesting. So see, there's a lot of people in there too, a lot of troublemakers in the scene. Here you have the Maharishi trying to get everybody to free themselves and enjoy. Then you have the troublemakers, but then the Maharishi is also a man. So there's a lot. It's a soap opera in India.
Absolutely. And when they got back, Paul said to John, "Well, what went on over there? Why did you leave? Early?" Because they were going to stay for the whole thing. And John said, "Oh, he's just an old lech, just like everyone else." And he was trying to get it off with Mia and some other women there. And Paul said, "Well, but he never claimed to be anything but a meditation teacher." And Paul commented that he thought it was really very prudish of John to be like that. And really, I mean, John Lennon, prudish, right? He was. And the reality is that on the way back to London, on the plane, John got very drunk, and he admitted to Cynthia on the plane all of his indiscretions, like 300 women or whatever it was that he'd had sex with. And she was in complete shock because she thought that John had been faithful to her throughout their entire marriage.
Wow. What a plane ride for her.
And by the way, after that, in November, same time the White Album came out, guess what else came out? Two Virgins album with John and Yoko.
That's right.
In the buff, on the cover.
That's right.
So, you know, the prudish John, who's so self-righteous.
There's two sides to John.
What can I say?
There was two sides to John, you know? Wow. Pretty heavy.
I personally don't have an issue about the fact that Maharishi had sex with women or made passes at them. He's a man, you know, even though he was hypocritical because he claimed to be bal brahmachari, meaning life celibate. I don't fault him for it.
No.
The reality is he was focused 99.99999%. All of his focus, all of his life was dedicated to helping people, helping the world to create world peace. That was his expressed goal. It was the only thing he ever thought about.
Yeah, that was
so it. He wanted to create a world at peace, and he wanted to get as many people as possible to meditate. So he trained 40,000 people to meditate during his lifetime. And 40,000 teachers. He trained 40,000 teachers of transcendental meditation during his lifetime. And those teachers taught 6 million people to meditate during Maharishi's lifetime.
Wow.
That's quite an accomplishment.
That definitely is. And you know what? This book, Maharishi and Me, Susan, we'll put the link here for everybody to find that. If I get a good right there without the light glaring on it. Wonderful book. I want to thank you for coming on today, but don't go nowhere right now because, Susan, 3, 2, 1. We're going to do episode 2 on the Doctor Zone. That's right. So hang out right here. We got more talk to do with Susan, everybody. She's not getting off that easy. I enjoy having you here, Susan. I really do. And your stories are so great with the Beatles and fascinating. I can't get too much, but I got to apologize. My wife wrote Susan and Robbie Krieger, so she's fired. It's not Robbie Krieger. But we did find out. You and Robbie.
It was in the caption. Robbie's name was in the caption because he gave me the ring.
I have bad eyes. Don't you understand? You need to do a book on the loves of your lives because I'm sure there's a lot of stories, and I want to ask. And when you give the green light, I want to know. You got great stories, and there could be a movie just alone of the Beatles, the soap opera story with the Maharishi and all that good stuff. There's a lot more to talk about, but right now, everybody, it's that time. Fix your wig, get your life together, because your Thursday, Maharishi is here right now. Boom.
Ask the doctor what you should do. Ask the doctor a question or two. It's all right here on Coffee Talk. It's all pain-free without the shot. All advice is free. Please call 911 if you need assistance.
Everybody, thank you for being here. Please, before anything else, please subscribe. Hit that bell to be notified because I never know where I'm going to be in your living room with you, in your bed, living room, your bathtub, wherever we are, the bathroom. Susan is here. Dr. G is here. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the panel. Look at this. Look what we got here. I like Susan.
Hi, everybody.
You're next to me. It's like Dr. G's the guest today.
I like it that way, too. Hi, Susan.
Hi.
All righty.
I love your stories.
Fabulous stories.
Great, thank you.
Fabulous stories she has here. And you know what? Susan, God, you know what? And you look like a teenager. What is the secret? What are you doing? Are you still meditating? You're still heavily, what's your Susan routine in the morning? I want to know.
Well, I have to say that I think meditation keeps people young looking. So yeah, I meditate, and I work very hard. I'm very engaged. Keeps my mind active. So
Keeps you, all right.
I guess that's my secret. Meditation and activity.
Activity. Okay. Yeah, Susan. No, you look great, and you know what? You pleasant, and you know, you lived a life. And Dr. G, you know a little bit about meditation yourself, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I want to make this about Susan because gosh, I'm trying to keep this short. While I was thinking about this, is that so I'm fairly intense, hard-driven, going to medical school. I was going to do the MD PhD thing, stuck with just the medical school. And when I was after my second year of residency, I started to wake up a little bit to that was more to medicine. And so, and part of that was traversing through from Herbert Benson's world. I don't know if you ever spent time with him, because Herbert Benson started doing the relaxation response, which was what he thought he could sell to Americans basically as terms of a meditative technique. And so, because I was having tension-related headaches, and I also had pharmacy roommates, so I had my experiences with how to relieve a headache, but not necessarily to get to the roots of why I was having headaches. And so anyways, when I was finished, somewhere in my second or third year residency, I learned TM. About this time, a friend of me tells me this book called Quantum Healing from Deepak Chopra, and I was like, I'm going to look at this. So very interesting. So I end up taking TM, and there's so many beautiful experiences with TM, and that started to get me into the fold with Deepak, even though Deepak kind of left that movement about a couple of years later, which was great for me because he came to the San Diego area. But so I first started learning transcendental meditation, late 80s sometime, and was wonderful. It was part of just kind of slowing down the process. The guy who taught me, who I don't remember his name, was just, he had spent this time and learned he's one of those teachers that Susan was talking about. Beautiful guy. And I remember, there's so many stories I could tell, but I remember I had this one moment when I had just finished learning the mantra, and we had come back for our check. I discussed my experiences, and and after he gave me such great advice, I said, I am so glad that I learned through you, because that other teacher is such an asshole. And and he laughed at me. He laughed at me and he goes, you should have seen him a few years ago, which was another great training point, by the way, which is, yes, you can be an asshole and be a TM instructor. It's just, you're in this process, and it just solidified my moment about learning about transcendental meditation, everybody, because he was just so straightforward and so kind. When I was telling him about my meditative experience after 2 weeks in TM, and everybody at this kind of group meeting were having these like celestial experiences, and like the heartbeat of the universe was beating through them, and I was in the audience doing bullshit, and because I wasn't having that. So when I went to my instructor, I said, that mantra thing, I can't even slip that sucker in there. Talking about between my thoughts, and he just said, did you have the intention to have the mantra? And he went, yes. And he goes, you're doing perfect. And it was just like a weight lifted off of me, because I wasn't seeing saints and angels and shit. I was barely able to get that sucker in there. This is the mantra technique that you're taught for meditation. And I've learned so much more from meditation, but I remember so much about my experience with TM. So for any of you out there, what I teach about with meditation now, I went on and I got to know Deepak, because Deepak came to San Diego at that time, and he revitalized a different technique. The way he teaches it is he and the Maharishi were revitalizing this technique. So another technique called primordial sound meditation. You can tell me what the Maharishi's version of the story is, but and I love Deepak, and I spent many years with him. Became everything through the Chopra organization, from a meditation instructor to the magic of healing and all these other things. I was starting to learn Ayurveda and all kinds of other systems of healing. But in terms of my root getting into meditation, I learned through TM. And even though I moved on to this primordial sound meditation technique, which is not the same thing, but has a similar properties, I've been meditating ever since as well. And so, but such great advice in terms of of and a great experience through going through TM, and something that I would recommend to everybody still is one of the techniques that is so powerful and so useful in terms of anchoring your ability in terms of learning meditation. So enough of me.
Yeah, sometimes I got to do this to make him quiet over here.
I finished.
Look, we have a question over here. This is Dr. G. Can your wife ask a question? Is that okay? Here's a question. Did the Maharishi, right here, can you see that? Did Maharishi teach Deepak over there?
Well, Deepak was Maharishi's golden boy. He sent him all over the world. He had intended for Deepak to be his successor. So, yeah, the answer is definitely yes. Yes, Deepak was, Maharishi made Deepak who he is. He made him famous.
Wow.
He sent him around the world to teach meditation, to teach Ayurveda. And also he instructed all of his thousands and thousands of followers, Maharishi, or actually millions of followers at the time. He told them all to buy Deepak's book so that he became New York Times bestseller immediately because everyone bought his books.
Wow.
And so Maharishi made Deepak, and I'm sure that Deepak would probably concur with that and give him that honor, because
he had a similar meeting story. Deepak's version of meeting him is somewhat similar to what you discussed in terms of just grabbing him and having him translate for him in terms of giving a lecture at a certain site. This is decades ago. I've heard this story, but and then learning on, and so Deepak always spoke with Maharishi with great respect and honor. I never met the Maharishi either, by the way, everybody. So most of my training went through Deepak, and absolutely he honored the Maharishi for a length of time. They did break up. It wasn't certainly as, from Deepak's standpoint, wasn't as bitter as John Lennon apparently, but definitely there was a change of things, and definitely a conflict at that time. From even my friend who had told me about quantum healing and things, he was worried that I was going to hang out with this Deepak guy, and he said, "Don't do that meditation; you'll get brain damage." And I went, "All right, chill out, dude." It's like there was a splitting. It's like, you'll love Deepak. Oh my God, don't listen to him; you'll get brain damage. Kind of funny. So I said, "Dude, just chill a little bit. He's a good guy, and I don't actually even want to know the backstory and between, he said and she said in terms of what happened between the two of them. I'm just really happy he's out here in San Diego. He started off the Sharp Institute of Mind-Body Medicine. I knew him before he was, famous for the Chopra organization part of things, and kind of was in the ground floor of their organization at that time. But it's been decades since I've talked to the man.
That's funny.
Yes. If you read my book, Maharishi and Me, it does have stories of a lot of different celebrities in there and their relationship with Maharishi, including people like Andy Kaufman and Mike Love of Beach Boys and John Gray, the famous author, and also Deepak. There is quite a bit in my book, Maharishi and Me, about Deepak and how he broke up with Maharishi and what the backstory is, which I'm not going to tell now because I want people to read my book.
You want them to read the book, but Andy Kaufman, huh? So he
he was famous.
He was famous for that, huh? He's
and Doug Henning also was another one, very famous magician at the time.
Wow. That's pretty interesting stuff. Miranda had, Dr. G, your wife over here, she has a lot of questions, right? Here's another good one. Dr. G, you could ask that for Susan.
What does Susan think made transcendental meditation come to America?
Well, Maharishi brought it to America.
Right.
Maharishi, it was 1959, and Maharishi just put his belongings in a carpet roll. That was all he had, was a carpet roll. And he got on the plane and went to Burma and ended up in Hawaii. And he didn't have any money. He didn't have really a plan. His only plan was to spread meditation to the world. And so he met people along the way. And then he ended up in Los Angeles. It was really the first place in the United States. Well, Hawaii was the first place. But then he went to Los Angeles for the continental United States. That was the first place. And he met people there and really at first it was like the Theosophy set, where people who were really into esoteric stuff like Manly P. Hall and so on. But from there it grew, and he met a small group of people and ended up living in somebody's house and sort of made that house into a meditation center, much to their chagrin, or maybe happiness, because they were thrilled to have him there. But he really took over their place, and then ended up just meeting people along the way and getting support, and just gradually it grew and blossomed into this huge, gigantic force of nature, really.
Very interesting. Dr. G, let me ask you, how much of this you still practice now that you're practicing yourself?
Well, I do. Like most of us, we've kind of gone through different meditation experiences and different practices through that time, and mindfulness practices. So, again, so for all of us, I think it's smart to have a meditative practice. The Maharishi's teaching was 20 minutes twice a day, but that was more, again, this is according to Deepak, and you can correct me, was more about what he thought he could get Americans to do as compared to what had to be the right dosage. Because, as Susan was mentioning, you can do silent retreats and meditate for many, many hours a day, and that's a useful experience. But in terms of our day-to-day, the idea was to dip into the field and bring it back out, and dip into the field and bring it back out. And that was the idea, is that became more of a permanent part of your awareness, is to practice something. So do I practice meditation at least an hour a day, and sometimes more? And the answer is yes. And so the using a variety of techniques, but primarily the primordial sound meditation technique that I learned from Deepak. And so but it also becomes meditations in every moment, and it's about how we practice in each moment as well. So having a separate practice is a wonderful thing. Realizing that practice really is in every moment becomes kind of the purpose, if you will.
Yeah. Susan, for somebody like me, and I have a hard time just letting go, like to start my the only time I can meditate and really, I was telling my wife this morning, I only feel zen if I fill the bathtub, I hear the water running, and I just lay there. Because in the other show, you said, laying is not the right way to meditate, but laying in the bathtub with water, listening to the sounds, is the only time I can let my just mind wander. I can't do it sitting up. I've tried it many, many times. What do you recommend for somebody like me to find that?
I recommend you do what works for you.
Yeah.
And it seems like you found something that works for you.
So there's no rules. So sitting up trying to meditate, there's no rules to it.
The only reason for sitting up is you don't fall asleep as readily if you sit up.
Yeah.
So that is really the only reason why people would meditate sitting up. There is a form of meditation called Yoga Nidra that is supposed to be done lying down, actually. There is an Indian practice called Yoga Nidra, which is done, you lie down and completely relax the body, and then it's like it's a guided meditation, actually, is what Yoga Nidra is. And I actually don't practice transcendental meditation anymore. In fact, I started practicing another method in 1986 and have been doing that ever since. In fact, many of my books teach that. I have 20 books in print. I have 36 foreign editions, and I've won 40 book awards. And almost all my books are about different meditative practices, affirmation, prayer, energy healing. I write about a lot of different subjects, but you can learn the meditation techniques that I teach in my books. And my first book was called Divine Revelation. And that's the method that I teach. I call it Divine Revelation, which is about really listening to the inner voice and having conversations with your higher self, and also being able to have that direct experience of the divine presence, which is so powerful.
Now, what made you switch? What made you stop the old?
I learned this other method, and I just liked it better. So I continued to practice TM along with the other method for a while. And then I ended up just going with the other method that I call Divine Revelation. For me, it was just more compatible with me, because I'm kind of a devotional kind of person. bhakti yoga, meaning devotional kind of practice, is more for me. And TM is not really a devotional practice unless you're with the guru, which I was. I actually ended up happily being able to be with Maharishi for so many years. And so that satisfied the devotional aspect of me, which is, it's all about love, divine love. And that's what the method that I teach is about that.
Yeah. Now, did you feel part of it too? Maybe you got too close, got to know too much of him, and maybe that that never jaded you?
No, I always loved TM. TM, I had fantastic experiences with TM. The kinds of things that the doctor there was talking about, that was me. I had wonderful, wonderful experiences of unbounded awareness. And when Maharishi taught the Siddhi program, where people were doing the levitation and all that, I had nothing but wonderful experiences with TM. And I even recommend it now. I tell people, oh yeah, go learn TM. It's so easy. You should practice it. Especially people who are tense and really don't know how to relax, how to settle down. I say, go learn TM. It's so easy, and it works. So do it.
It works. And Dr. G, I mean, this is a medical show as well. Now we're in, and you tell your patients, I recommend, why don't you try to meditate? Is that one of the first things you do? Because stress, it brings all kinds of...
how we talk about stress management in a way overloaded world is, first of all, is that stress unloading. Most people, they're so stressed, too much time, that telling them to do anything 20 minutes twice a day would be one more thing to fail at, another thing that would pull them away from their family or something. So the first step in stress management, now remember everybody, meditation is a self-realization practice. It's more than just stress management. But the first step is change your life such that you have the time to stop and smell the roses, to time for exercise, etc. So stress unloading, have the time, pull away from the TV and the phones and all those other things. So the first step when you're saying your mind is going so much is so many people are spending so much time on their phones, they're stimulated all the time that their minds are being activated. It's kind of what those things are supposed to do, drawing you into kind of this illusory world that we consider so real in terms of especially capitalism. And so first step is stress unloading, because people, it would often be ladies who would be driving, like peeling into my parking lot to make it to my meditation class on time. It's like, I'm sorry I'm late. It's okay, everybody. So first thing, have time in your life, everybody, because telling them to meditate 20 minutes twice a day would be an act of cruelty to them. They would be something else to fail at that they didn't have enough time to do. So stress unloading, everybody. Have the time in your life, time for exercise, and then you should create enough time in your life that you have time for meditation. And so yes, then, so is it the first thing? No. What many people call meditation is more relaxation, which is actually the first step they need. I remember it was like Krishnamurti. He was so mad at mantras and hypnosis and all this other stuff. It's like, he was kind of uppity about it, but I tell you, his relaxation's a really good first step, even if you consider it not good enough or something, So do we need some relaxation in our life? Yes, even if that's sitting and, watching the waterfall from into the bathtub or things like that. So there's relaxation, which is a very key step, and then there's meditation too, and I agree completely with Susan. The best form of meditation is the one you'll do. It's like I tell people, what's the best form of exercise? The one you'll do. What's the best form of meditation? Just as saying, she found something and said, hey, this rings more true to me. The key in that, people, is that it's things you notice in your day-to-day life. That's, I think, you can tell me if that's what you meant, Susan, but, that's what we talk about with meditation. It's how you feel and how you witness things in your day-to-day life, not just specifically about what's occurring during meditation. And so you find something that's like, yeah, that rings true. This is something that I can feel in my day-to-day life, whether that's synchronicities or other types of things that you start to notice that kind of make you, more and more aware that you're the ocean and not just the wave, so to speak.
The ocean, not just the wave. I like that. I like that. Susan, do you get a lot of people writing to you now since this whole lockdown and everybody's been a little, tense? Susan, I'm feeling like this. Do you get a lot of people just asking you for advice or what to do now?
No.
No, you don't. No, that's a good one.
Very frank.
See?
No.
No answer. How about you, Dr. G? Do
Yeah.
you get a lot of people that are asking you to find their Zen part in the world and life? Because it does. You're creating all this chaos, which the chaos in your head brings on the cancer, the heart trouble, all that nonsense that we don't want to deal with.
Remember how we talked about this? Like, even doctors like me would like to promote wellness and get people to be well. Disease cells. Sorry, but it's what people come to see you for is when they feel diseased, which is like 10-point steps past just being stressed, right? So,
all right, Dr. G, don't say nothing. Don't say nothing. We want you to make money. So here.
So no, it's like I really wish I'd see people just when they're stressed, but when their stress has led to so many other things, it's about, can you deal with my heartburn or my diarrhea? And this, like, yeah, we got to calm those things down. Probably not going to do much meditation during all those diarrhea episodes. We probably got to sit you down a little bit. So yes, the first thing you do is try to get rid of the symptoms, but that's, when we talk about our symptoms are our teachers, sometimes if you take the symptoms away, the person goes, well, I just needed a probiotic, and that's really not what your body was asking for, even if it helped you, and so, or whatever helped with the symptoms at hand. So the idea is to recognize that there's, that this key part of our life, this self-realization, who am I, has been a universal part of every culture, and taking some time to become aware of who am I is a really, really key part of humanity. And if you look at the issues going on in the world, that's the things that the Maharishi was teaching about. And then when he was talking about the field effect, it was one of the first things that I was looking at. It's like, this is cool, and they were doing some research on this field effect that Susan was talking about with groups of meditators practicing the city programs. And so, can you get a field effect? And the answer was clearly yes. And it's like, that's interesting. And isn't there more to human beings? And whether it was drugs or probiotics or chiropractic manipulation, there's something a lot deeper there that if you really wanted to heal people at, you would actually look much deeper than the things that I was doing, and actually even still am for the most part.
Yeah. Susan, do you have any questions yourself for the doctor with health and what's going on, with the world? Anything that you'd like to know?
Well, I would be interested to get your take on the vaccinations.
We've done a lot with that, and I've recommended just specifically either the Moderna vaccination or the Pfizer as far as that goes. And, has the coronavirus been a very, very important problem? There's a lot we can do. We always have talked about even before the vaccine, when we did shows, we were talking about the terrain is more important than the organism, which is, of course, true. And, of course, stress management and healthy exercise, whole food nutrition. Here's some supplements that are useful in terms of prevention. And I still stick with that. Has it been such a difficult problem to deal with? I think it's by far the best thing to do is to recommend this one vaccination. Susan, you haven't seen our other shows, but that's very rare for me to recommend vaccines because I'm not a big fan of most of the vaccines. This one, and using the new technology, the mRNA, has really been a breakthrough in terms of a healthier way of doing developing specific immunity. I'm very, again, as time has gone on, I'm more and more towards using Moderna than any other vaccine, and kind of a 1A, 1B for Moderna and Pfizer. But even when Johnson & Johnson's probably going to come back at the end of the week, according to Fauci, and I'm still not going to recommend it.
Yeah. But is it true that this type of vaccination is different than, for example, smallpox or other ones that were developed earlier against specific diseases? I mean, this new way of doing it is not dangerous for people?
No, it's a technology that we've been waiting for that's been probably suppressed for decades, actually. And so, yes, because the old vaccines are so cheap to make. And again, original smallpox was just like taking cowpox pustules and putting it on people. And you got a variety of diseases from doing that, by the way. So thank God we do something different than the way we used to do it, because the old vaccines are so unclean. And so, and they're a part of the issues going on, especially with our children. And so I know that makes me unpopular among the vaccine crowd, but anyways, and so yes, thank heavens there's been an improvement in technology. This kind of goes into, again, this is one of those things where you can sometimes get the best out of humanity under crisis, and this kind of coming to the fore is really actually, thank heavens it has, because it's developing, and now it's of course, since it's a newer technology, it's going to be pricier, everybody. So thank heavens this one you didn't have to pay for. But when they update the other vaccines to make them not have all of the adjuvants and crap that's in them, then we'll find that we'll be able to start maybe even finally eliminating things like measles if we wanted to, but not that we have to. But that kind of goes into is this a better way of doing vaccines? Yes, thank heavens it's not done the way it was done before.
That's interesting.
Yeah. When you talk about the vax for the kids too, you feel like I'm not like the people out there. Whoever's watching the show, disclaimer. Don't crucify me, okay? I'm just a guy with an opinion, we all have them. I don't even want to say bad words here. But when I brought my little one to the doctor in the schools, and you have to give your kids all these shots, I was first like, I don't know, I don't feel good about this. But then you're stuck with they're twisting your arm behind your back till you say uncle, and then you have to, else they can't go anywhere. It's like you're almost held hostage. Now, my little one did get, some vax shots, just before the corona thing all happened. But I could see a little like the attention, the hyper. And I wonder if that has all stuff. I'm not saying it does. I'm not saying it does or doesn't. But me, the way I think I kind of I think maybe, did we do something wrong here?
Again, you have to be careful, kind of this middle path thing where, this is one vaccine I recommend because of the severeness of not only the disease itself, but that 10 to 30% of people who are getting long COVID are unknowns about the virus. There's a lot of reasons to go into prevention mode here. Most of the vaccines are sold through fear. Oh my gosh, you can't get this, chickenpox. Oh my goodness. And no, actually, if you take care of healthy kids, they can get chickenpox. It's actually part of developing their immune system. That probably actually helps with them preventing certain things like brain tumors and other things as well too. So most of the infections in the world, as we've talked about, those little pockets of energy and information, it would be kind of tough not to look at RNA and DNA viruses and just figure out how does this fit into the world? Is it just malevolent and mean to the species, or is it a part of this kind of great, vast educational process that transforms us? And by the way, because when you look at what percentage of our DNA has been modified by exposures to other viruses in the past, and the answer is these organisms are clearly part of who we are. Okay, so spending your entire time preventing whatever this master plan, whatever this is that's out there, doesn't ring true to me. Now, there are cases when things are so severe. So for instance, if smallpox did come back, then we would have to look at this, doing a safer version of a smallpox vaccine because it's such a severe outcome. That's a typical example. But people, I just heard this the other day. If I've gotten the primary series of Moderna, Miranda got the primary doses of the Pfizer, you're now stuck. You have to do all the boosters in the future. Ha ha, they have you. No.
That's good to know.
I can choose to do a booster in the future. Should I think the risk to benefit ratio of a booster in the future is what I want to do? So once again, just because you just take a few steps down the pathway, your intuition, your insight is supposed to say, different path now. And so you're not stuck as far as that goes. But thank heavens we've come up with a cleaner vaccine. That the impetus from a severe pandemic has allowed us to create a vaccine that has been waiting to come to the forefront. It will be more expensive to start with than the older vaccines because that's the way it is with newer technologies, but it will also allow us to bend and adapt like we have never been able to do before. So when variants come around, should there be a requirement, should there be a severe enough variant that is escaping things, then you can make the choice. And it'll be able to be done like that, folks. Not take 10 years, not take 15 years, not take 5 years. It'll be able to take, months because you can actually resequence and create the new vaccine, the new mRNA vaccine, again, almost instantaneously. And of course, it will have to be tried and all the other things. But, we have now an ability to adapt because what I've been telling people for a long time is the viruses of the world are getting smarter and it seems like we're getting stupider. I know that's not really a word, but the viruses do have a certain, intelligence about them and adaptability. And it seems like people seem to, through a lot of that being brought out into this illusory world, our adaptive abilities seem to become limited. And so, so yes, this is one time where I recommend a vaccine, as you guys know. But Susan, so I have a almost 3-year-old. He hasn't gotten one vaccine yet, and of course he won't get this one because it hasn't been tested in him. So it's not like I recommend all vaccines. It's just you have to. It's like I said, like anything else. When I was with Deepak, there was a point where he said he wanted me to kind of join and do medicine, but it was just going to be teaching and practicing Ayurveda, which in my mind was fairly limited. And so I said, thank you, but no. Because the middle path medicine would involve all forms of medicine and trying to take the best of all of them. And so that was, just one time where it's like, yeah, thank you. This is an honor to be asked about those things, but I wouldn't, that wouldn't be consistent with who I am, because I would become limited in terms of what I did, practicing Ayurveda. And so same thing goes. This is really interesting with this vaccine thing. If you become an anti-vaxxer and you decide to define yourself that way, you have now pigeonholed yourself away from a lot of technology and advancements that you could be there. Same thing goes if you're one of these public health people that throws every single vaccine at you, then you also are kind of almost in a brain dead algorithmic doctor, where just because some authority told you to recommend something, you do it anyways. And back to that, when my first 2 sons were, and I was still part of that system, I did have them, they were just starting the hepatitis B vaccine, giving it right at infancy, because why wouldn't you? Every vaccine is great. And is that strongly associated with the type 1 diabetes that one of my children have? And the answer is yes. Do I know for sure that I caused his diabetes? No, but be very clear, the incidence of autoimmune diseases and allergic diseases and very severe diseases are increasing to the point where they outweigh the benefit you get from potentially preventing certain infections. And it was again, at the time, I didn't question things. And so that was because I was just getting onto my path where I was starting to look at the world in a more clear way. And I hadn't quite yet got to the point where I questioned vaccines, not just other medicines, which I was well into doing. Because why would you question vaccines? They're the greatest thing since, sliced bread. And I was wrong. And so, but back to what you said, the last thing, if I was sitting around living in guilt over that, I caused my own son's type 1 diabetes, which I might or might not have. That would not be healthy for any of us. We just said, that was the best decision I could make at that time. Now I will make the best decision I can for this son, which is I'm not going to give him the vaccines until I am really clear that the risk to benefit ratio is there, which would make, according to the World Health Organization, me one of the biggest threats to humanity, because vaccine hesitancy they think is as bad as smoking. And that shows you how ridiculous another side of the world is, because that's just not true. Questioning technology, questioning medicine is actually really, really smart. And because no, it's not all true. Turns out the Maharishi really wasn't just a celibate dude. Not that bothers me, but I don't like hypocrisy. But does it affect anything about the science of being in the art of living, which is one of the things I grew up with. Grew up sort of, meaning as a doctor kind of thing. No, because it's too bad that he had to put on that air that this is who I am, when that wasn't who he was. And I think that just also becomes part of, what system you're involved in can trap you sometimes. And not that he was trapped, but I'm just saying it's his handlers, somebody had to put out that message. The same kind of concept of, if you start to think I'm with you or against you, I'm a vaxxer, I'm an anti-vaxxer, you've kind of missed the point, actually, of rational thought. Which is, should think about that, and so that's kind of where I'm at. But that kind of goes into why we think it's so important to meditate, everybody, because it's part of the wisdom pathway. Knowledge is part of the knowledge pathway. They are not the same thing.
No, they're not the same thing. And you know what, Susan,
Sorry.
I'm going to ask you a question. Do you have your passport for the new world with the vax? Have you done it?
No.
You haven't done it yet? Are you
I will
thinking
do
about
it
it?
if I have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be if I have to do it for travel, or if I have to do it to get on a cruise ship, because I produce seminars on cruise ships.
Mm-hmm.
It happens to be one of my professions. And we do these holistic seminars at sea, which, by the way, if anyone would like to go on one of our amazing wonderful conferences at sea, you can check that out at divinetravels.com. That's DIVINE TRAVELS, plural on the travels, divinetravels.com. So it's right now they are mandating vaccinations in order to get onto cruise ships. Whether they will in 2022, when my cruises are going to be coming up, I don't know yet. But I plan to take a vaccination if I have to in order to go on a cruise ship or in order to travel or in order to do something that I need to do. Yes, I will take the vaccination.
Yeah,
but so far, I have not chosen to do that.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
I think Dr. G here, I think you've given made some really interesting points. I would like to learn more about what this new vaccination is as compared to other ones in the past. So I might do some research on that.
We've written on Middle Path Medicine. We have some articles, and because another thing you want to hear, Susan, from me is that, yes, I'm recommending the vaccine, but no, again, if I got upset over people not listening to me, that what good would that do anybody? It's not about me as far as that goes. Is it this? Do I think this is worthwhile? Yes, I have many patients in my practice who've decided not to get the vaccine for very, I think, legit personal reasons. So that's why you have to be careful. There's a lot of rabid vaxxer people that, oh my God, you're not going to get the vaccine, you're evil, and it's like, chill out, everyone.
Actually, one reason why I'm not getting the vaccine, unless I have to, is because of the fact that I died and came back to life from anaphylactic shock because of being allergic to a shot that I was given.
Wow.
Right. And I have extreme allergies, and they actually told people who have extreme allergies not to take the shot. So that's another reason why I have elected not to do it.
And thank you for sharing that, because that's what I'm talking about. People with legit reasons, and if they choose not to get the vaccine, nor are they required to share it with you, by the way. If they said, no, I'm just choosing not to get the vaccine, it's like, you're supposed to shut up at that point. Like, oh, okay, But if they want to share more, thank you for sharing, Susan, because those are the kinds of patients I've told not to get the vaccine as well. But until we waited and had some more time, and again, as time has gone on, because of the way they do the liposomes, by the way, that's what I would tell you. If you were looking at anything, it would be Moderna, not Pfizer. And so, because there's a higher rate of problems in people with significant medical diseases, over 75, history of anaphylaxis, et cetera. There's reasons for certain groups. I'm really saying, hey, go to Moderna as compared to Pfizer. But if you've had that kind of history, they would be aware of it. You'd probably do it in a hospital setting because the hospitals provide that for people with your history. But be very clear. If I had an anaphylaxis history to something, I would think twice about it, because the concern is the polyethylene glycol that is in so many medicines might be the issue that is whatever you had anaphylaxis with, Susan. But and there is some of that in the mRNA liposome. So that's why you'd have to be very clear and careful. That's one of those things where when that first started coming out, I said, all right, let's look for the PEG antibodies and let's see if we can identify who the higher risk people are. And there, as of yet, there, for somebody with your history, Susan, just so you know, there is no test that proves because most likely the anaphylaxis would be related to an antibody versus polyethylene glycol, PEG, which is found in many, many, many medicines, etc. And that would be the concern. But as of yet, a doctor like me who would love to order that test to try to reassure our patients or tell them not to get the vaccine, the test isn't even available. So there you go. I couldn't do anything to further reassure you, in the future. But if you do get it, Susan, because you have to, because of the reasons you talked about, you would do it in a hospital setting. You do the Moderna, not the Pfizer. That would be my recommendation.
Oh, well, thanks.
Wow, Susan. Thank you for sharing that, Susan, because it's I think the viewers that are watching this, they need to be aware, and the questions, there's so many questions, Dr. G, that we are afraid to ask, and we don't know until we get to the finish line. Okay. And even with a regular vac shot for your kid, or what we're dealing with this, what I had to go through. It's like, there's so many questions I had, but then I felt like, okay, I got to do it because I got to live my life. I can't live the way we've been living this past year. It's been brutal for all of us.
Right. And then, see, and this is part of my thing too, because, I like my science journals, and there's some Italian doctor saying the Earth is the Earth is a sphere, and fire gets flammable, and vaccines are safe and effective. It's like supposedly that, that kind of bullshit. Everybody should be able to see through. Okay, because look at what has happened with AstraZeneca. Look at what's happening with Johnson & Johnson. There's so many signals that not everything is safe and effective, and then you got to ask that question. Well, what about my kids? What's happening to them? And nobody wants you to ask those questions because you're just supposed to be some compliant whatever. And let's face it, there's severe adverse reactions occurring out there, people. Yes, they are low probability. What they're trying to sell you is everything out there is so dangerous that you just got to risk your kids' autoimmune disease, central venous sinus thromboses, and all the other things. Nope, doesn't really matter. The risk to benefit ratio. So we save 100 and kill 1. Who cares? We're saving 100, but if you're the kid that's being killed, you'd care, okay, or had an autoimmune disease. So you got to look at this medical intervention and say, wow, I've got to weigh up this risk to benefit ratio, because seriously, in the future, if I don't think the risk to benefit for whatever booster will come, which I'm sure it will, a year or two, that of course you'll have to weigh it at the time, and I might or might not do it depending on what's going on at the time. But if I do it, I'm going to put it in my arm, and I'm not just going to tell other people to do it.
Yeah. Very well put, Dr. G. Well, Susan, Dr. G, it might be that witching hour, but you know what? This was a great conversation. And Susan, I'm glad you came forward with that, and it helps us. It helps other people to bring awareness. But the main thing over here as well, everybody, wash your hands, wear a mask, respect the disease, because you know what? You're respecting everybody else around you. And if you need to, do this if you're traveling. Get your passport for freedom right now. It's a crazy world we're in. But Susan, her book is out, and you can check it out. And I'm going to put all the descriptions over here. Look at that. Let's get me I have a kind of a Maharishi vibe. I had the beard. If I grow it in, I can get a following over here,
No, you don't, Seven.
I could do it. I could do it, a little steeple, a little beard. I could take over the world. I could take it over. Susan, this right here could be a movie about the.
Actually, that's interesting because we're writing a screenplay right now.
Are you really?
Yes.
Very interesting.
And it's got the Beatles in it, and Maharishi, and I'm in it, and.
Well, you got to be in it.
Well, yeah.
So
I'm not in it. The character named Susan is in the film.
Who do you see playing Susan?
Ooh.
Oh, I don't know. I
can't say. You don't want to offend anybody out there?
No, I just don't have any. I don't have anyone in mind. It has to be somebody very young, and I don't really know very many young actors.
What? Okay, of any.
But there is one that I want to play Maharishi. I can't remember his name. He's a comedian. He's very small, very short man. He's hilarious. He's Indian. He's actually a Muslim. And his name starts with A, something, Aziz or something.
Oh, I think I know who you're talking about. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
I can't remember his name right now, but he would be perfect.
Yeah.
He actually speaks and talks like Maharishi. He's got the high-pitched voice. Yeah. He looks like him. He really looks like Maharishi.
Really? Right. We gotta own Maharishi with a high pitched voice. He's not here today, but if you mean him all, what do you think about him? If he was around back in the '60s, free love, you think this guy has a chance? Handsome guy.
Yes.
That's Corey Levitt.
Not with me. He doesn't have a chance with me. I'll say that much.
I love you.
I knew Miranda would have it. It's Aziz Ansari is his name.
That's it. Aziz Ansari. That's the guy I want to get to play Maharishi. Right. He would be so perfect, and I think he could do it. I think he could pull it off. He's a comedian, but Maharishi was too. He was always laughing around Maharishi.
Right. He was. That's why that was the enlightenment, was to lighten up, and that's why laughter is such a good thing. People, if you're not laughing, it probably means you're taking yourself too seriously, and so that's kind of the point of that. Laughing is such a wonderful and a healing thing to do. Actually, too, is laughing could be even considered kind of its own mantra, if you will, in terms of the resonant frequency that you develop with a laugh is so healthy for you in so many ways. So laugh more people. It's good for you.
You know what? It's the way I handle things myself. I always make a joke. If there's a bad situation, or somebody passes away, I got to make a joke, and I make a joke about it too. When my attitude is, hey, when I go, I don't want people to be, this and that. I go, it's like, hey, yeah, I want to invite all the people that didn't like me at my funeral. I wanted to be known that, hey, Stefan wanted to say this to you, like make a note and make a whole big splash. But I want to make a joke too. I want people to laugh. I mean, life is so tough, everybody out there, and it's been really insane lately, more than ever. You gotta laugh. You got to be afraid to go into a mall. You got to be afraid to walk around the corner. You got to be afraid to say this and say that. Man, just say a joke and smile, and hopefully everything will get back to normal someday, some way. But you know what? If you guys want to see Susan and you do want to go on her cruise, right here, tell me if I'm wrong, Susan. Right here, do I have it right?
That's it.
That's it.
Thank
Boom,
you.
right there.
Thanks for that. I appreciate that.
The little ticker
go.
over
We've
there.
got 3 coming up in 2022. One's going to Tahiti, another one's going to Alaska, and then the third one will be going to Hawaii. I don't have the Hawaii one up, but I do have the Tahiti one up and the Alaska.
Okay, excellent. I think
Check it out.
You know what, Dr.
Sounds
G?
great.
I think like this. I got one of these. You get one of these. Maybe we could all go take a cruise and do a show live on the cruise. Right?
There you go.
Would
That
be a lot
sounds
of fun.
good.
I like it.
Live from the cruise ship sounds good to me.
That's right. We get coffee, talk, and tea. Everybody, I want to thank you. All the descriptions are going to be for Susan. You're going to find them in here. But here's another little. She has it right next to her. www.drsusan.org, right in the ticker. And of course, you know where to find Dr. G and me. We're here every Thursday, spreading love, spreading joy. Dr. G, you know what? You're on good behavior today. Before we get out of here.
Well,
Let me
I
bring
can
the
be
show.
inappropriate as much as anybody else. Let's talk to Susan about her sex life.
Good behavior. Dr. G, he has his own medicine over here for his meditation is right here. His kid goes to the park. Dr. G doesn't even know what his kid's doing. He's in the background over there. That's his beautiful son. But in the back, picking weeds. The kid could be running other people over. Could be Dr. G.
Unless there was just somebody taking a picture of me right now that was watching the kid, while I purged the earth of the devil weeds, and so I'm just spending time in nature there. Okay, and I was actually just figuring I was probably mooning you, Stefan. So there you go.
Were mooning me, but before you moon me, remember, everybody, go please check out Susan's book. It's great stories. Get it now before the movie comes out. Susan, thank you so much for your time and your energy and dealing with me. Sorry I was late this morning. Don't hold it against me. Dr. G, you're going to be Friday on Instagram. What are you talking about this Friday? Do you have anything?
Fridays on Instagram. Actually, we haven't set a subject yet, so it'll probably go into mental health. It's very interesting you're bringing up, because just in the New England Journal of Medicine, they were talking about the use of psilocybin and its comparativeness and actually relative efficacy versus Lexapro. Lexapro is a common antidepressant in people, and just with 2 doses of psilocybin at a fairly low dosage, psilocybin is mushrooms, if you will, they showed pretty significant antidepressant effect. And this kind of goes into when you were talking about the psychedelics earlier, is we're coming back and we're really seeing that at low doses the psychedelics are going to probably be safer and better ways of getting an antidepressant effect, because of probably there's many reasons, but safer and better than the things like the Lexapro in the world. So I think it's very interesting that those studies are going forward.
Very good. Whatever you just said went over my head, but it's very good. You know what, Susan?
Psychedelics aren't just for getting into states of consciousness.
I was there one time in my life. I used to do a little this and that. I'm hip with the kids. Okay. I'm born in 1967 when Sergeant July. You remember that? I'm a child of the 60s, my friend. Mm-hmm. Susan, I got to ask you one personal question, if you don't mind me asking, before we get out of here. I'd like to end the show with a little drama. Who is your celebrity crush?
Celebrity crush.
Just say
okay,
me.
well, let's go back to George Harrison.
Wow.
George Harrison of the Beatles.
All right.
He's always my celebrity crush.
Right.
That's a good one. On that note, we love you, everybody. Big mazel. Dr.
Susan.
Steeple, Dr. G, we love you. But Susan, thank you so much for being our guest here today. Everybody, a little splash of happiness and love. Goodbye.
It's coffee talk with the Tika. Nothing rhymes with that but chicken tikka. We name drop here. Stefan and all his friends.
Oh, you guys got me right there. I'm just reading my friend's. Oh, Susan, you're here too. I just happen to be reading your book. I want to show everybody out there in the world. Please, everybody, please check it out. I will put all the good descriptions right there. But that's our friend Susan. And before we go, thank you guys. But click up there, click over here, up there, there, and remember. Subscribe, share, love one another, and always be steepling. Right, Dr. G? Always steeple, huh, Dr. G? That's right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.